The Leviathan awakens. The Solar Fleet's grandest creation. The Leviathan floated silently in the shadow of Jupiter. Its colossal frame, sleek and dark, absorbed the faint light of the distant sun, making it appear as if it had been carved from the void itself. At over 10 kilometers long, the ship was a marvel of engineering, its design shrouded in secrecy. The world had watched in awe when the project was announced, but only a few had ever seen it. Now, the Leviathan was ready for its maiden voyage. Captain Rain stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the massive viewscreen displaying Jupiter's swirling storms. She was a seasoned officer, known for her calm demeanor and sharp instincts, but even she felt a flicker of doubt as she surveyed her new command. The Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's declaration to the stars that they were ready for whatever came next. "All systems are green, Captain," Commander Briggs reported, his voice steady but tinged with excitement. "The ship is fully operational." "Good," Rain replied, her voice firm. "Let's begin." The crew worked with precision, their hands moving over controls and holographic displays. The Leviathan's engines hummed to life, a low vibration that resonated through the ship's massive hull. It was a sound that made the crew feel small, like ants in the belly of a beast. "We've picked up a signal, Captain," said Lieutenant Perez, the communications officer. Her voice carried a note of confusion. "It's faint, but it's definitely not human. It's a distress call." The bridge fell silent. This was unexpected. Humanity had expanded its reach to the outer planets, but no one had ever encountered another intelligent species. The possibility of first contact was always in the back of their minds, but a distress signal, that was new territory. "Play it," Rain ordered. The sound that filled the bridge was eerie and unearthly, a series of clicks and hums interspersed with a rhythmic pulse. It was clear it wasn't natural. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever was out there wasn't human. "Can we trace it?" Rain asked. "Yes, Captain," Perez replied. "It's coming from beyond the asteroid belt, near a cluster of uncharted moons." Rain considered the situation. The Leviathan was armed to the teeth and equipped with the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. If any ship could handle the unknown, it was this one. But that didn't mean the unknown wasn't dangerous. "Set a course," she said finally. "Let's see what's out there." The engines roared to life, and the Leviathan began its journey. The ship moved with surprising grace for its size, cutting through space like a blade through water. On board, the crew prepared for anything. Weapons were powered up, and scanners were calibrated to detect even the faintest traces of danger. As they approached the source of the signal, the crew grew tense. The signal grew stronger, its strange rhythm echoing through the ship's systems. It was as if the universe itself was whispering a secret, and the Leviathan was the only one listening. "Visuals on the source," Briggs announced, his voice breaking the silence. "Putting it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a scene that made everyone on the bridge gasp. A massive alien vessel floated in the void, its hull twisted and broken. Strange, glowing symbols ran along its sides, pulsating faintly like the dying embers of a fire. It was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. "Life signs?" Rain asked. "One," replied Dr. Harlow, the ship's chief medic. "It's weak but stable." Rain's mind raced. This wasn't just a ship. It was a chance to answer humanity's oldest question. Are we alone? But it was also a risk. The alien could be hostile, or worse, contagious. Still, they couldn't ignore the distress call. "Prepare a boarding team," she said, "and make sure they're armed." As the team suited up, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The Leviathan's crew had trained for this moment, but training was one thing. Facing the reality of first contact was another. The boarding shuttle launched, a tiny speck against the backdrop of the enormous alien ship. The crew watched anxiously as it approached the wreckage. When the team finally entered, their cameras transmitted live footage back to the Leviathan. The interior of the alien vessel was dark and filled with strange, organic structures. It looked more like a living organism than a machine. "We found the life sign," one of the team members reported. The camera panned to reveal a tall, slender figure with 4 arms and shimmering, translucent skin. The alien was slumped against a wall, its chest rising and falling weakly. It opened its eyes, large, glowing orbs, and stared directly at the camera. "Bring it aboard," Rain ordered, "and keep it under quarantine." The shuttle returned with its alien passenger, and the crew braced themselves for what came next. The bridge was silent as they waited for the medics to assess the alien's condition. Meanwhile, the distress signal continued to play, its strange rhythm filling the air like a haunting melody. Rain looked out at the alien ship on the view screen. The Leviathan had taken its first step into the unknown, but what lay ahead was anyone's guess. "Whatever this is," she said softly, "we're not turning back now." The alien wreckage. The alien lay motionless in the medbay, its translucent skin shimmering faintly under the sterile lights. Captain Rain stood outside the containment chamber, watching the medical team work through the reinforced glass. The alien's chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, and its large, glowing eyes fluttered open for brief moments before closing again. "Condition?" Rain asked, breaking the tense silence. Dr. Harlow adjusted her datavat. "Stable, but barely. Its biology is complicated. We're dealing with a system far beyond anything we've encountered. The good news is, it doesn't appear contagious. No immediate threats to the crew." "That's relative," Commander Briggs muttered under his breath. Rain ignored him. Her focus was on the mystery they had just brought aboard. "What about its ship? Anything useful from the scans?" Briggs nodded, though his expression was grim. "The alien vessel is a graveyard, Captain. Its hull shows signs of battle damage, massive energy strikes that cut clean through. No signs of survivors apart from the one we recovered." "And the distress signal?" Rain pressed. "It's automated," Briggs replied. "Triggered when the ship was attacked. But here's the strange part. It's still transmitting, even now. Even after we brought the survivor aboard." Rain frowned. "Why would it keep broadcasting?" "That's the question," Briggs said. "And I don't think we'll like the answer." In the ship's conference room, the senior officers gathered around a holographic display of the alien wreckage. The rotating image highlighted jagged tears in the hull, scorch marks, and large, circular indentations that looked like bite marks. "Bite marks," Lieutenant Perez repeated, staring at the display. "You're saying something ate their ship." "Or tried to," Briggs corrected grimly. "The damage doesn't match any weapon signatures we know of. Whatever hit them, it wasn't just mechanical. It was predatory." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had long speculated about intelligent life beyond Earth, but no one had prepared for the idea of a galactic food chain. "Captain," Perez began hesitantly, "if the distress signal is still active, could it be attracting something?" Before Rain could respond, an alert blared through the room. "Unidentified vessels detected," the computer's voice announced. "Multiple contacts approaching at high velocity." On the bridge, the tension was palpable as the crew scrambled to their stations. The main view screen displayed the approaching vessels, sleek, angular ships that moved with a predatory grace. Their energy signatures were unfamiliar, but their intent was clear. "They're scanning us," Briggs reported, his voice tight. "And they don't look friendly." "Shields up," Rain ordered. "All weapons on standby." The alien in the medbay suddenly stirred, its glowing eyes snapping open. It began thrashing weakly, its translucent skin pulsing with bright flashes. The medical team stepped back, startled. "What's happening?" Rain demanded over the comm. "I think it's reacting to the incoming ships," Harlow replied. "Its vitals are spiking. This isn't fear, Captain. This is panic." On the bridge, the alien vessels halted just outside of weapons range. The lead ship transmitted a message, a series of guttural growls and screeches that sent a chill through the crew. "Can we translate that?" Rain asked. Perez shook her head. "Not yet, but it doesn't sound like a greeting." Suddenly, the alien in the medbay spoke. Its voice was weak but urgent, a series of clicks and hums that matched the distress signal. The translation system worked overtime, piecing together fragments of meaning. "Danger, hunters, they come." The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the alien's warning echoed through the ship. Rain's jaw tightened. She turned back to the view screen, where the alien vessels remained ominously still. "Hunters," she murmured. "They're not here to negotiate." The Leviathan was a fortress, armed with weapons that could obliterate moons. But the crew wasn't dealing with a conventional enemy. These were predators, beings that saw ships and their occupants as prey. "They're moving," Briggs announced. "Formation shift. Looks like they're trying to surround us." "Fire a warning shot," Rain commanded. "Let's see how they respond." The Leviathan's main cannon discharge, a beam of energy that streaked across the void and narrowly missed the lead alien ship. The hostile vessels scattered like startled birds, but only for a moment. Then, as if enraged, they regrouped in charge. "Here they come," Briggs shouted. The battle was fierce and chaotic. The Leviathan's weapons tore through the alien ships with precision, but the attackers were relentless. They swarmed like predators scenting blood, testing the ship's defenses with cunning and coordination. Amid the chaos, the alien survivor in the medbay began to hum a low, resonant tone. The sound spread through the ship's systems, integrating with its signals. Lights flickered, and then the alien spoke again, this time in broken but clear words. "Not just hunters. They feed. Must escape." Rain's eyes narrowed. "What are they feeding on?" The alien's glowing eyes locked onto the camera in its chamber. "Life. Energy. Your crew." The realization hit like a thunderbolt. These creatures weren't just hunting. They were consuming the ship's very life force. Rain's mind raced as she barked orders. "All power to weapons. Take them out before they breach the hull." The Leviathan unleashed a devastating barrage, its advanced weaponry shredding the remaining alien ships. But the victory felt hollow. The survivors' warning lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of what they had just faced. As the debris of the alien attackers drifted into the void, the crew of the Leviathan realized they had only scratched the surface of the dangers lurking in the galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness, something far worse was watching. The galactic predator. The Leviathan drifted in the silent void, its hull scarred from the recent battle. Though victorious, the crew knew this was no ordinary skirmish. They had encountered predators, alien ships designed not only to destroy but to consume. Captain Rain stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the faint outline of the alien wreckage still visible on the view screen. The rescued alien, now stabilized in the medbay, had revealed fragments of horrifying truth. These hunters were not solitary. They were part of something much larger, much deadlier. "We've intercepted a signal," Lieutenant Perez announced, her voice shaking slightly. "It's not from the hunters. It's something bigger." "Bigger?" Rain turned sharply. "Define bigger." Perez hesitated, then brought up a hologram. It displayed a massive object, far larger than any vessel humanity, or the crew of the Leviathan, had ever seen. The signal emanated from this Leviathan of the void, a dark shape drifting toward them with ominous intent. "It's a mothership," Briggs said grimly. "Or worse." Medbay revelations. In the medbay, the rescued alien, identified as Cilia, sat upright, its glowing eyes darting between the human medical staff. It spoke in broken phrases, its voice now clearer after adjustments to the translation system. "Hunters, not alone. Hive. They follow Hive." Dr. Harlow leaned closer. "What Hive? Is that what's coming?" Cilia's forearms gestured wildly, struggling to convey urgency. "Hive comes, consumes all. Energy, life, ships. You, too bright. They see. Too bright. Harlow frowned. What does that mean? Cilia turned its glowing eyes toward the ceiling, as if sensing something the humans could not. Your ship, your power, too loud. Hive will find. The medbay intercom crackled. Dr. Harlow, Captain Rain needs you on the bridge immediately, a voice announced. Harlow nodded to the medics and turned to Cilia. Stay here. We'll protect you. Cilia tilted its head. No protection. Only run. The first glimpse. On the bridge, Rain studied the holographic display. The alien mothership, or Hive, was colossal. Its exterior was a chaotic mass of shifting organic and mechanical parts, pulsating with eerie light. It didn't move like a conventional ship. It seemed to slither through the void, its tendrils reaching out as if tasting the emptiness around it. It's not just a ship, Paris said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's alive. And it's coming straight for us, Briggs added. ETA, 15 minutes. 15 minutes until what? Rain asked. Briggs hesitated. Until we find out if we're prey. The Hive's call. As the Hive drew closer, the Leviathan's systems began to behave strangely. Lights flickered, and the ship's advanced AI, Ikikyo, stuttered, its normally smooth voice breaking into fragments. Unidentified. Energy? Source. Interference. What's happening to ECHO? Rain demanded. Perez frantically worked at her console. It's the Hive. It's emitting some kind of energy field. It's invasive. Like it's trying to reach inside the ship. Or inside us. Briggs muttered darkly. Suddenly, the alien in the medbay began to emit a low, resonant hum, its voice vibrating through the ship's intercom system. The sound was both haunting and mesmerizing, sending a shiver down the spines of the crew. What is that? Rain demanded. It's Cilia, Harlow replied over the comm. Cheese, responding to the Hive. On the medbay's monitors, Cilia's vitals spiked as the hum grew louder. Its glowing eyes turned completely black, and its voice deepened, speaking the single phrase that the translation system barely managed to interpret. They come to feed. The battle begins. The Hive finally came into range, its massive tendrils stretching toward the Leviathan. The crew watched in horror as smaller ships emerged from its body like parasites, swarming toward them with predatory speed. Weapons ready, Rain ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. Fire at will. The Leviathan's advanced arsenal came to life, unleashing devastating beams of energy that tore through the swarm. Explosions lit up the void. And for a moment, it seemed the humans might hold their ground. But the Hive was relentless. For every ship destroyed, 2 more emerged. Worse, the Hive's energy field began to penetrate the Leviathan's shields, causing systems to malfunction. Shields are failing, Briggs shouted. We can't hold this position. Cilia's warning. In the medbay, Cilia's hum turned into a piercing cry. Its glowing eyes snapped open, and it spoke with a sudden clarity that cut through the chaos. You cannot fight Hive. Only escape. Must blind them. Blind them? Harlow asked. How? Cilia struggled to stand, its 4 arms gesturing wildly. Your ship, too loud. Power draws them. Shut down. Hide. Desperate measures. Back on the bridge, Rain made a snap decision. Shut down all non-essential systems. Minimize our energy output. Briggs hesitated. Captain, if we do that, we'll be sitting ducks. If we don't, we're already dead. Rain snapped. Do it. One by one, the Leviathan systems powered down, leaving the ship eerily silent. The lights dimmed, and the hum of the engines faded. The crew held their breath as the Hive drew closer. The tendrils slowed, hesitating as if confused. The smaller ships began to drift aimlessly, their movements disorganized. The Hive seemed to lose interest, its massive form turning away, retreating back into the void. Aftermath. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief as the hive disappeared from the view screen. But the atmosphere remained tense. This wasn't a victory. It was a warning. Rain turned to Celia, who had been brought to the bridge. What was that? Celia met her gaze, its expression unreadable. Not victory. Only delay. Hive always returns. The captain nodded grimly. Then we'll be ready. The Leviathan had survived the encounter, but the crew knew their journey was far from over. Somewhere in the darkness, the hive was still out there, watching, waiting, and humanity had just made its presence known. Humanity's stand. The Leviathan floated in eerie silence, a shadow of its earlier might. Systems were in low-power mode, and the crew moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors. Despite their survival, the sense of foreboding lingered. The hive was still out there, and every moment felt like borrowed time. Captain Rain sat in the war room with her senior officers, holograms flickering before them. Celia stood to the side, its tall, slender form casting strange shadows on the walls. The alien's glowing eyes were now dull, as though drained from the encounter. "We buy ourselves time," Rain began, her voice steady but grim. "But time isn't enough. We need a plan." Briggs leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Captain, we can't outrun that thing forever. We need to figure out how to fight it." Celia interjected, its voice sharper than before. "Hive cannot be fought. It consumes. It adapts. Your weapons, not enough." "That's not an option," Rain said firmly. "There has to be a way." The room fell silent as the crew mulled over their limited options. Suddenly, Lieutenant Perez broke the tension. "Captain, what about the Leviathan's experimental systems? The ones we've never tested." The mention of experimental systems sent a ripple through the room. These were technologies so new and unproven that even the engineers weren't sure of their potential or their consequences. The secret weapon. Deep in the ship's engineering bay, Rain and a small team examined the Leviathan's classified system, the Darkwave Core. It was a prototype weapon designed to disrupt energy-based systems across vast distances. On paper, it could cripple even the most advanced ships. In theory, Chief Engineer Mason explained, the Darkwave could shut down the hive's energy field. But there's a catch. Rain raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. It could destroy us too." Mason gave a nervous nod. "It draws power directly from the core. If we push it too far, we could overload the entire ship." "We don't have a choice," Rain said. "Prep the system. If this is the only way to blind the hive, we'll take the risk." The hive returns. As the crew prepared the Darkwave Core, the hive reappeared on the Leviathan sensors. This time, it didn't approach cautiously. It surged toward them like a tidal wave, its massive form blotting out the stars. "They're coming in fast," Briggs shouted from the bridge. "We've got minutes." "Activate full power," Rain ordered. "Bring us to battle readiness." The ship roared back to life, lights flickering on and engines humming at full capacity. The hive, sensing the sudden surge of energy, accelerated, its tendrils stretching out like claws. "All weapons online," Rain commanded. "Fire at will." The Leviathan unleashed a torrent of firepower, its beams slicing through the void and obliterating the hive's smaller ships. Explosions lit up the darkness, but for every enemy destroyed, more swarmed in to replace them. Celia watched the battle unfold from the bridge, its expression unreadable. "Hive is testing you," it said softly. "It learns." "They're about to learn what humanity can do," Rain replied. A desperate gamble. The Darkwave Core was ready. Mason's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, the Core's charge, but we're at critical levels. We won't get a second shot." Rain stared at the view screen, where the hive loomed ever closer. Its tendrils lashed out, striking the Leviathan's shields with devastating force. The ship shuddered under the impact. "Target the hive's center mass," Rain ordered. "We're going to give it everything we've got." The crew braced themselves as the darkwave core activated. A low, resonant hum filled the ship, growing louder and deeper until it felt like the very air was vibrating. On the view screen, a pulse of dark energy erupted from the Leviathan, rippling outward like a shockwave. The hive reacted instantly. Its tendrils recoiled, and its smaller ships spun wildly out of control. The massive entity seemed to convulse, its organic and mechanical parts glitching and flickering. "It's working," Perez shouted. "The hive's systems are destabilizing." But the victory was short-lived. The Leviathan's systems began to falter, the strain of the darkwave core pushing the ship to its limits. Alarms blared as the power levels dropped dangerously low. "Core is overloading," Mason warned. "We've got seconds before it takes us down with it." "Shut it down," Rain ordered. Now. The core powered down, and the ship's systems stabilized. But the hive was already recovering. Its tendrils re-extended, and its smaller ships regrouped, more determined than ever. "They're adapting," Cilia said, its voice trembling. "You blinded them once, but now they know. They will not stop." The final push. The hive launched a final, all-out assault. The Leviathan fought back with everything it had, but the odds were stacked against them. The crew began to feel the weight of desperation as their shields weakened and their ammunition ran low. In a moment of clarity, Rain turned to Cilia. "You said the hive feeds on energy, right? What happens if there's too much energy? More than it can handle?" Cilia's eyes widened as it realized her plan. "It would implode, destroy itself." Rain nodded. "Then let's give it what it wants." The crew worked frantically, rerouting all remaining power to a single overload pulse. The Leviathan's core burned dangerously hot, alarms blaring as the ship prepared to unleash one final attack. "Everyone, braced for impact," Rain said. "This is going to hurt." A deadly light. The Leviathan fired its final pulse, a blinding surge of energy that consumed the hive in an instant. The massive entity convulsed violently, its tendrils retracting as it collapsed in on itself. The smaller ships disintegrated, and the hive let out a final deafening screech before vanishing into the void. The Leviathan was left drifting, its systems barely functional. The crew sat in stunned silence, their faces lit by the flickering lights of the bridge. "It's gone," Perez whispered. "We did it." "No," Rain said quietly, her gaze still fixed on the empty void. "We survived. But this isn't over." Cilia stepped forward, its voice solemn. "You have won this day. But the hive is not one. It is many." Rain turned to her crew, her expression resolute. "Then we'll be ready. Whatever comes next, humanity will stand." The Leviathan, battered but unbroken, set a course back to the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, other hives were waiting. But so was humanity, stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. The Battle of the Void. The aftermath of the hive's destruction left the Leviathan crippled but alive. Engineers worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship's core, patching up systems that had been pushed to their limits. Yet the victory felt hollow. The crew knew the hive wasn't unique. It was just one fragment of a larger, more insidious network lurking in the galaxy. Captain Rain sat in her quarters, staring at the holographic star map displayed before her. The map showed countless uncharted sectors, each one a potential breeding ground for more of the hive. Cilia's warning echoed in her mind. The hive is not one. It is many. The door chimed, breaking her thoughts. "Come in." Commander Briggs entered, his face etched with concern. "Captain, we've picked up another signal. It's faint, but it's identical to the one we traced to the first hive." Rain leaned forward. "Where?" Briggs pointed to a sector deep in the galaxy's outer rim. "Here." "It's far, Captain, even for the Leviathan. And there's another problem. Our core is still unstable, if we push it too hard." Rain stood, her decision made before he could finish. "We don't have a choice. If we sit here, We'll just wait for the next hive to find us. Plot a course. Into the unknown. The Leviathan limped through space, its engines groaning under the strain. The crew worked in tense silence, knowing that every light flicker and system failure brought them closer to the edge. Cilia remained on the bridge, watching the humans with a mixture of curiosity and unease. "You go to another hive," Cilia said, breaking the silence. "Why? You could run. Hide." Rain didn't look away from the view screen. "Because running isn't who we are. If we're going to survive, we have to face the threat head-on." Cilia tilted its head. "Brave, but foolish. Hive will not fall so easily." "Neither will we," Rain replied, her voice cold steel. The new hive. As the Leviathan approached the source of the signal, the crew prepared for the worst. The hive's location wasn't an empty void this time. It was a massive asteroid field, the debris forming a chaotic labyrinth that even the Leviathan struggled to navigate. "Scanners picking up multiple energy signatures," Perez reported. "High ships, a lot of them." On the view screen, the hive's tendrils wove through the asteroid field like vines choking a forest. Unlike the first hive, this one had adapted, camouflaging itself within the rocks and debris. Smaller ships darted between the asteroids, their movements erratic and unpredictable. "This isn't just a hive," Briggs muttered. "It's a nest." Rain's jaw tightened, weapons online. "Let's see if we can crack it open." A deadly ambush. As the Leviathan powered up its weapons, the high ship suddenly sprang into motion, swarming toward the warship like a school of predatory fish. The Leviathan unleashed its firepower, beams of energy slicing through the swarm, but the hive had learned from its previous defeat. "They're adapting," Perez shouted. "Our weapons aren't hitting as hard." Rain clenched her fists. "Keep firing. Focus on the tendrils. They're holding the nest together." The ship shuddered as high ships struck the hull, their tendrils latching on and attempting to burrow inside. Alarms blared as crew members fought off boarding parties, the corridors filling with the echoes of battle. In the medbay, Cilia watched the chaos unfold on the monitors. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate, its glowing eyes flickering. Then, as if steeling itself, it stood and left the medbay, heading toward the engineering bay. A desperate plan. In the engineering bay, Cilia found Mason frantically working to stabilize the core. "You need help," it said, startling the engineer. "What are you doing here?" Mason snapped. "This area is restricted." Cilia ignored him, moving to the core's controls. "Hive adapts. Your weapons, not enough. But core can do more." Mason's eyes widened. "You want to overload the core again? We barely survived the first time." "No choice," Cilia said firmly. "Hive must not spread." Mason hesitated, then activated the intercom. "Captain, Cilia's in engineering. It's suggesting we overload the core to wipe out the nest." Rain's voice came through, sharp and decisive. "Do it, and make it count." The final push. As the Leviathan fought to hold off the high ships, the core powered up, its energy levels climbing dangerously high. Mason and Cilia worked side by side, their movements synchronized despite their differences. "We're at critical levels," Mason shouted. "If we go any higher, we'll blow ourselves to pieces." "Not yet," Cilia said. "Wait for Hive to feed." On the bridge, Rain watched as the hive tendrils began to converge on the Leviathan, drawn to the energy surge. The ship became a beacon, its power radiating like a flame attracting moths. "They're taking the bait," Briggs said, "but they're getting too close." "Hold steady," Rain ordered. "Mason, now." The explosion. The core released its energy in a massive pulse, the shockwave tearing through the asteroid field and vaporizing the high ships in an instant. The tendrils disintegrated, and the nest collapsed, the debris scattering into the void. On board the Leviathan, systems flickered and failed as the ship was thrown backward by the blast. Sparks flew, and the lights dimmed, plunging the crew into darkness. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly, the lights flickered back on. The hive was gone, and the Leviathan was still in one piece. The cost of victory. The crew cheered, but their relief was short-lived. The core was damaged beyond repair, and the Leviathan was stranded in the middle of an asteroid field with limited power. "We're alive," Rain said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "And so is humanity. That's enough." Cilia, leaning heavily against a console, nodded. "You are strong. Hive will fear you now." "But not for long," Rain replied, staring out at the debris. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over." The Leviathan had proven that humanity could stand against the hive, but the cost of survival was steep. As the ship drifted in the void, the crew knew that their journey had only just begun. Betrayal and redemption. The Leviathan hung in the quiet void, its massive hull bearing the scars of two brutal battles. The once proud warship was now a shadow of its former self, with power reserves critically low and its experimental systems offline. For the crew, survival was no longer just about defeating the hive. It was about finding a way home. Captain Rain stood on the dimly lit bridge, her gaze fixed on the debris field ahead. Despite their victory, unease lingered. The hive was defeated, but Cilia's warnings haunted her thoughts. The hive will not stop. It will adapt. "Status report," Rain said, breaking the silence. Griggs adjusted the cracked display in front of him. "Engines are functional, but barely. Power reserves at 12%. Weapons are offline, and we've lost long-range communication." "Any sign of hive activity?" she asked. "None," Perez replied. "But that doesn't mean they're not out there." Rain nodded grimly. "We need to find a safe harbor, somewhere we can regroup." Before she could say more, a sudden alert blared through the ship. "Unauthorized access in engineering," the computer announced. Cilia's secret. In the engineering bay, chaos erupted as Cilia stood over the Leviathan's core. Its tall, slender form was bathed in the eerie glow of the power systems. Mason and his team were pinned to the wall, restrained by the alien's surprising strength. "What are you doing?" Mason shouted, struggling against the tendrils Cilia had extended from its arms. "You'll destroy us all." Cilia didn't answer immediately. Its glowing eyes were fixed on the core, its hands moving swiftly over the controls. Finally, it spoke, its voice low and resolute. "Your ship, too powerful. Hive will come again. Must hide. Your light. You're shutting us down." Mason yelled. "We need that power to survive." Cilia hesitated, its movements faltering. "You survive. Hive survives. Only way is darkness." Before Cilia could finish, armed security burst into the bay, weapons drawn. Rain entered behind them, her face a mask of fury. "Cilia, step away from the core," she ordered, her voice cold. The alien turned to face her, its glowing eyes filled with something almost like regret. "I do what you cannot. For your survival." "No," Rain said firmly. "We decide how we survive." The hive's signal. As Rain ordered Cilia restrained, Perez's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, we're picking up a faint signal. It's hive-like, but it's not coming toward us." "What do you mean?" Rain replied, her attention divided. "It's a distress signal," Perez explained. "Similar to the one we first responded to, but different. It's almost like a call for help." The words hung in the air. Could it be possible that not all hive entities were predators, or was this another trap? Cilia, now restrained, spoke suddenly. "Hive. Fragments. Some escape control. They resist." "What are you saying?" Rain asked, turning to face the alien. "Not all hive. One mind. Some, like me. Refugees," Cilia said, its voice tinged with desperation. "Signal may lead to allies." A difficult choice. The senior officers gathered in the war room, the tension palpable. The distress signal could be an opportunity or a disaster. With their power reserves dwindling, they couldn't afford to make the wrong call. "Captain, we can't trust Cilia," Briggs argued. "It's already tried to sabotage us once. And yet, it's the only reason we survived the hive twice," Harlow countered. "If this signal is what Cilia says it is, we might find a way to fight back." Rain listened, her mind racing. Finally, she made her decision. "We go to the signal. If there's even a chance it's an ally, we need to take it." The refugees. The Leviathan followed the faint signal to a desolate moon on the edge of an asteroid belt. The surface was barren, with jagged cliffs and an eerie pale glow. Nestled in the shadows of a massive crater was a small, heavily damaged ship. Its design was alien, but it bore none of the terrifying organic features of the hive. "Life signs?" Rain asked. "Multiple," Perez replied, "but weak." The Leviathan sent a shuttle to investigate, with Rain and Cilia among the boarding team. As they approached the ship, they were met with a group of aliens, thin, frail creatures with features similar to Cilia's. Their leader stepped forward, speaking in a mix of clicks and hums. Cilia translated. They fled the hive, severed their link, but always hunted. Rain stepped forward. "We're not part of the hive. We're here to help." The alien leader hesitated, then gestured for them to follow. A hidden truth. Inside the ship, the refugees revealed a shocking secret. They had developed a prototype weapon designed to disrupt the hive's neural network, severing the link that bound its ships and drones together. However, the weapon was incomplete, and the refugees lacked the resources to finish it. Rain's mind raced. "If we help you finish this weapon, can it destroy the hive?" The alien leader spoke through Cilia. "Not destroy. Free." "Free?" Briggs asked, his tone skeptical. Cilia nodded. "Hive. Not born predators. They were made. Weapon could turn them back." Betrayal turned redemption. Back aboard the Leviathan, the crew worked alongside the refugees to complete the weapon. Tensions ran high as resources stretched thin. Cilia, under constant watch, worked tirelessly, its actions driven by a deep sense of purpose. As the weapon neared completion, Briggs confronted Rain. "Captain, how do we know this isn't another trap?" "We don't," Rain admitted, "but we can't fight the hive as it is. If there's a chance to turn them into something else, we have to take it." The weapon was finally completed, a sleek device designed to emit a massive neural pulse. Cilia volunteered to deliver it, piloting the small craft toward the next hive signal. "Why?" Rain asked as Cilia prepared to leave. "For my people," Cilia said simply. "For yours." The crew watched in silence as Cilia's craft disappeared into the void. Moments later, the pulse activated, spreading across the galaxy. The hive ships paused, their movements faltering, as if awakening from a nightmare. For the first time, the galaxy was silent, but the cost of redemption remained unknown. A new alliance. The galaxy held its breath as the neural pulse spread, rippling across star systems and disrupting the hive's seemingly unstoppable forces. Hive ships that once acted as unified predators now drifted aimlessly, their tendrils retracting like stunned animals. The Leviathan crew watched the live feed in stunned silence, their ship's sensors relaying images of the hive's transformation. For a moment, it seemed as though they had won. "Status on Cilia's craft?" Captain Rain asked, her voice steady but strained. "Signal is gone," Lieutenant Perez replied. "There's no sign of Cilia." The bridge fell silent, the weight of sacrifice hanging heavy over them. Rain clenched her fists but forced herself to focus. Cilia had done what no one else could, given the galaxy a chance to reclaim itself from the hive's tyranny, awakening the forgotten. As the hive ships remained motionless, strange signals began to emanate from their cores. Perez worked furiously at her console, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Captain, we're picking up communications," she said. "The hive ships are trying to talk." "Put it through," Rain ordered. A fractured, stuttering voice filled the bridge. It was a cacophony of overlapping tones, struggling to form coherent words. "Who are we? Where is the mind?" The crew exchanged uneasy glances. These weren't predators anymore. They were something new, fragments of a broken collective struggling to find their identity. "They're waking up," Briggs said quietly. "They don't know what they are without the hive." Rain's mind raced. The Leviathan was in no condition to face a new threat, but this wasn't an attack. It was a plea for guidance. The refugees' hope. The refugees, now aboard the Leviathan, observed the hive's transformation with awe and fear. Their leader, a frail but determined alien named Myra, addressed Rain in their shared meeting room. "They are free," Myra said through a translator. "But freedom is chaos to those who have only known control. They will not all survive this." "Survive?" Briggs asked, his skepticism cutting through the room. "You're saying some might turn back?" Myra nodded solemnly. "Without guidance, many will revert. But some will thrive. They need leadership, purpose. And you're suggesting we provide that?" Rain asked, her tone skeptical. "No," Myra replied. "They must lead themselves. But you can. Inspire." The hive's first words. Rain made a bold decision to open communications with the nearest hive ship. The fractured voice returned, more cohesive this time. "Why did you break us?" "You weren't free," Rain said, her voice calm but firm. "You were slaves to a collective mind, consuming everything in your path. We gave you a choice." "Choice," the voice repeated, as if testing the word. "What do we do now?" Rain paused, the weight of the moment heavy. "You rebuild, not as hunters, but as builders, as creators. You decide who you want to be." The response was slow, but eventually, the voice replied, "We will try. A fragile alliance." Over the next several weeks, the Leviathan acted as a mediator between the newly awakened hive fragments and the galaxy's terrified civilizations. Some species wanted to wipe out the hive remnants entirely, unwilling to believe they could change. Others saw potential in forging alliances, recognizing that the hive's vast knowledge and resources could benefit everyone. The first fragile alliance was formed when a hive ship, now identifying itself as Unity, pledged to protect a vulnerable refugee colony from pirate raids. It was a symbolic gesture, but one that sent ripples across the galaxy. The price of redemption. Despite the progress, not all hive fragments adapted peacefully. Some reverted to their predatory nature, becoming rogue threats that hunted anything in their path. These rogue ships reminded everyone that the hive's transformation was not a guaranteed success. Rain worked tirelessly. Her crew stretched to their limits as they balanced diplomacy with defense. The Leviathan became a beacon of hope and a symbol of humanity's resolve. "We can't save them all," Briggs said one night in a rare moment of quiet. "You know that, right?" Rain nodded. "But we can save enough." The legacy of Cilia. One day, as the Leviathan patrolled a distant system, a faint signal appeared on their sensors. It was weak, barely detectable, but unmistakably Cilia's. The crew scrambled to locate its source, eventually discovering a battered craft floating near a dying star. They brought Cilia aboard, its body weak but alive. The alien's glowing eyes flickered with faint light as it spoke. "Did we succeed?" Rain smiled, her voice soft. "You did more than that. You gave them a future." Cilia nodded, a faint smile on its alien features. "Then it was worth it." A new dawn. The galaxy was forever changed. The hive, once a symbol of fear and destruction, was now a fragmented but evolving entity, searching for its place among the stars. The Leviathan and its crew became legends, their names spoken in awe by species across the galaxy. As the ship prepared for its next mission, Rain stood on the bridge, looking out at the endless expanse of stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with danger and uncertainty. But for the first time in history, humanity had proven that it could not only survive, but also lead. "We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore," Rain said, her voice carrying the weight of countless lives. "We're fighting for everyone." The Leviathan surged forward, its battered hull shining in the starlight. Somewhere out there, new challenges awaited, but so did new allies, new hope, and the promise of a brighter future.